What is emotional health? Emotional health, in a general sense, is the capacity to be aware of, control, and express your own emotion while balancing other people's emotion, meaning being aware of controlling other people's emotion. I think control is a funny way to say it, but it's facilitating the emotion of other people around you. And it's very, very important, like we heard in the video, both for our personal lives and our professional lives. So I have a short emotional health test or emotional intelligence test for you guys. I will put the link in the group chat. Oops, sorry. Here it goes. It is really hard to find the chat. In the chat, go ahead and click on the link, and you should be able to see the test. And then once you're done taking the test, it's a very short test. It's not, I'm just giving you guys so you can look at it and be aware of what kind of questions they ask and know what kind of score you would get on an emotional intelligence test. There are more extensive tests, but go ahead and take it. And then give me a thumbs up when you guys are done, or you're not surprised by your results. Typically, an intelligence IQ is calculated using two different categories, two big main categories. You have experiential emotional intelligence, which is as you experience of your experience of recognizing emotions and then comparing them to other sensations and comparing them how they interact with your thoughts. And then strategic emotional intelligence is understanding the meaning and implication of emotions and how to manage those emotions. And then you have another branch that feeds into these scores, which is perceiving emotions, using emotions, understanding them, and managing them. And that's pretty much how your emotional intelligence is calculated. So if you look at the questions that you answer, you can kind of pinpoint which questions are going to be showing how, you know, maybe you perceive emotions or you manage emotions. So why is emotional intelligence important? We mentioned it earlier, and it's important for our personal lives and for our professional lives. And right now, I would imagine most of you guys are professional students. Therefore, our emotional health does help us with academic achievement. Emotional health helps us navigate our negative emotions. You know, if we're honest, we're not always positive, or we don't always have positive emotions. You know, we're not always motivated to do our work, or we're not like happy to be around certain people. But emotional intelligence helps us manage those emotions so we can have a higher amount of productivity, and it impacts how we perform academically. So studies have shown that academic intelligence shapes how we perform academically better than academic traits or cognitive abilities. And our performance is usually facilitated by how we can motivate ourselves and how we're able to set and follow those or goals, which are emotional health or intelligence. I don't know why I want to say emotional health, but emotional intelligence help us achieve our goals and set reasonable goals, even when we don't necessarily feel like it. Let's see if I want to add anything else to that. All right, so I'm going to just call emotional intelligence EI, so it's easier. So EI is made up of these 4 categories that you see on this screen, and they're both divided into self and social. So our emotional intelligence is not just about ourselves and how we can understand and manage our emotions. There's also a social aspect to it where our emotional intelligence interacts with other people, or our emotions actually interact with other people. So on the self side, it's recognition of who we are and how we manage or respond to our emotions. In the awareness and the recognition section, our self-awareness is to the ability to recognize and understand what we're feeling, our moods and our drive, and how they also affect other people around us. And on the management side, it's controlling those emotions instead of having disruptive or impulsive moods and feelings. How can we take those emotions and direct them so we can be focused on the task at hand, or also that we're not lashing out onto other people, like for example when we're angry. Can we manage those emotions so that we interact with people in a respectful and calm manner? On the social side of it, it's how are we aware of other people's feelings? Are we aware, and then do we understand what people are feeling? Why are people feeling that way? And are we able to relate to other people? Are we able to empathize? Not only sense what they're feeling, also are we able to feel it with them? And then in the regulation aspect of it, can we manage those emotions in networks and in relationships? Can we find a common ground to relate to each other and talk with each other? And these skills are developed skills. They don't, just come out of nowhere, but we have to be worked on them. Just like we have intelligence with our books and understanding of academics, we grow in our emotional intelligence as well. And it also involves an interaction between thoughts and feelings and behavior. So emotional intelligence is not very straightforward or one-sided. It's actually multidimensional. Um, okay, let's talk about emotions. What are emotions? Also, like Dr. Adam was saying, I do recommend that you guys maybe explore personality tests, just so you know how you work. I'm not saying like a personality test will tell you who you are completely, but it is a good indicator of what kind of tendencies that you have. And then there are also recommendations how to work within your personality type so you can be the most successful. I mean, I've taken a couple different tests, and I would say they generally describe what I'm like. There are differences, yes, but it does help to be aware of yourself and how you work and what you're like, because growth really, it starts at a place of knowing yourself. If you don't know what you need to improve, how are you supposed to improve it? Right, we're going to continue. What are emotions? Emotions are a valuable input. I think sometimes emotions are presented in a way that, oh, you can't be emotional, or just like, oh, this person is just too emotional. But emotions are really a part of who we are and how God created us to sense the world around us. They help us understand and judge things around us. So it's really a piece of information that tells you what's going on in your world. And they provided us a sense of community. We have common emotions shared with the people that are close to us. It can be a familial feeling and emotion. It can be people that are Ethiopian. It can be people that are Christian. And there's a commonality within emotions. Emotions are experienced internally and they're expressed externally. Sometimes there's a breakdown between these, where we experience things internally, but sometimes we don't express it externally, which can become a problem where, sometimes we're upset at someone and we need to tell them, but we actually don't. And we kind of go through our day passive aggressively annoying the person or being annoyed all day. Or sometimes we express emotions externally, maybe in a way that is not very productive or is disruptive. For example, if a person's angry and instead of talking about it, they go around breaking things, that's not a very productive way of expressing our emotions. It can motivate both encouragement and discouragement. Like I was talking about earlier, you can feel like you want to do your homework and you do your homework really great today, but then tomorrow you might not feel like doing it. And kind of a funny thing about me, but I do get into these moods where I have the deepest need to clean everything. And I feel like those are the moments where my emotions are very encouraging to do something. But then there are other times where, I don't want to get up out of bed in the morning. And emotions can be consciously and unconsciously generated. And we can be feeling something without knowing it. This is actually something I'm growing to do. If I'm upset and I feel myself acting a certain way without thinking about it, I try to pause and say, so what's making me act out this way? Why am I my actions are telling me I'm angry. Why exactly am I angry? And sometimes this can be to a person of authority in your life, like a parent. Sometimes I find myself, that I'm going to be honest, I find myself just, being ticked off and just doing things and, or responding in a way that I shouldn't be. And then I try to pause and say, hey Beatty, why are you acting like this? I usually ask myself, like, what exactly is going on? And that kind of helps me discover those unconsciously generated thoughts or feelings. It is both something that is developed in a social setting, and it's also part of the genetic makeup of a person. We can be susceptible to anger or happiness or any of the emotions, and it can be a product of what goes on around us. Maybe we were raised in a family that expresses their anger a certain way, so maybe we're susceptible to anger. Or we grew up in a family where we process our emotions differently, so we have a quieter temperament. So it's influenced by the people around us, and it's also a part of who we are in our genetics and as a person. Also, emotions aren't good or bad, they just are emotions. Like I said earlier, they are a piece of information that tells you what's going on in your world. Therefore, it's the expression of those emotions that's either good or bad. But the emotions within themselves, they are not bad. Anger is not bad. For example, I just thought of this, but like Jesus was angry, but he never sinned. It's the problem usually is how we express certain feelings that are bad and that are not productive, rather than the emotion itself. Our emotions can also tell us what we're passionate about, what we love doing, and what we also don't love doing, and what is not healthy for us to do. And they can also be a response to something that's going on. They can be triggered by something that's going on around us. And also, as humans, we're not very one-dimensional. We feel emotions usually in combinations. If there's anger, there's usually something that triggered it that also triggers frustration, or like we were going over a week or 2 weeks ago, like disgust or frustration. Emotions kind of come in these combinations. And there are many types of emotions. we shouldn't really label our emotions, like I was saying, either good or bad. We're actually taught to differentiate feelings as good or bad from a young age, but it's a thought process we have to teach ourselves to break out of. We're also taught that some emotions are okay to express while some are not. And I want to reiterate again, it's the way an emotion is expressed that is good or bad rather than the emotion itself. Like emotions, we have sadness, fear, joy, and anger. And most of the feelings that we feel are in this continuum of emotions. And it kind of helps me to think that sometimes it's kind of like an intersection. I'm imagining that this is like a graph, and the vertical line is the y-axis and the horizontal line is an x-axis. Sorry, I'm a total science person, so like I like to see the world in science. But if you think about it, sometimes you have emotions that's a combination of these four basic emotions. Like if you look in the anger, sadness quadrant area, like you can have a combination of those emotions. Maybe you can be angry about something that made you sad, or you can be sad about something that made you angry. And those emotions typically interact to shape the way we respond to things. And our response, in turn, is our behavior, how we're interacting with other people. So I want you to think about one of these emotions and how do they affect your behavior? And go ahead and go to the Menti. If you go to the Menti, you can click on next question and just give me a brief description of how one of these or a combination of them affect your behavior. I'll give you guys a couple minutes or maybe a minute.
The slide is not showing up.
What slide?
The menti.com.
Are you on the same question for Menti? There should be at the very bottom maybe one that says next question, or refresh the whole thing and then it should pop up.
No, actually I got it.
Let me know if you guys are having a hard time seeing the question.
Okay, I still don't see any quiz. I just see like awaiting.
Is everyone also seeing that?
So you go to Menti. Okay, here you go. Are you surprised? Go to slides.
And then click on next if you can see a next. Oh, here, let me do this. Can you guys type now?
Yeah, type your answer. I think it is a screen. You're going to ask, what is the question again? Can you repeat it for them?
I just said, just give me a brief description how an emotion here or a combination of these emotions affect your behavior.
Like, what do you mean by that?
So like, let's say I feel joy. How does joy affect my behavior? How I respond to people, how I interact maybe with my friends, with my parents, with my teachers. Just give me a little description.
It's saying you didn't vote in time.
Yeah, can you give back again, Bethy? It's very quick. It gives quick go.
I don't know what's wrong with
It's
it.
same thing to me. Now send it again. Ready to play?
Okay, I don't know why it's doing that.
Okay, all correct answers are given a mix. Now it gives you some, I think there is a timing. Everybody started to type.
Yeah, go ahead. It gives you 30
Go.
seconds.
Everybody type now. Make it shorter and the type. Now it's 50% the time is gone. Sorry guys, I don't know how to control the timing.
I don't.
Problem. 15 seconds left. 5 seconds.
An example.
All right. I see 2 answers. I don't know why it's not working.
It's too fast.
Okay, you
That's
know
really-
what? If you guys want to just say it, you can go ahead and say it. I lead I'm a part of a house of prayer on my campus, and leading for me is both terrifying and like joyful at the same time. Um, it's scary because I have to lead people, and then it's awesome also because I have to lead people. So how does that affect my behavior? My fear sometimes means I have to prepare ahead of time, so I know what I'm saying, and so my thoughts are collected. It also means that I talk to whoever I'm leading with, so we're on the same page and we understand each other. And then joy, and it makes me glad to lead, so I do it again and again. So and this is what I mean. Sometimes our emotions interact, and they also they affect how we respond to things and how we behave in certain situations. So it's really important to be aware of our emotions so we can respond properly, and so that we're not responding in just emotion without thinking about what we're doing. All right. Kind of continuing self-awareness. Self-awareness, again, is very multidimensional. You know, when God created us, he was really creative, and our emotions and our awareness is really dependent on many different factors, and they interact in different ways with each other. So I'm just going to go from the top and maybe make my way around clockwise. So for cognitive skills are our thoughts, our beliefs, how we recognize things, and how we talk to ourselves. It's mostly internal and about us, and that influences our behavior, which is an outward expression of those thoughts and beliefs and how we view ourselves. Physiological things are our biology. Are we a man or a woman? Our genetics, our physiological. Oh, I don't want to say awareness. Just our how we are physiologically, and that also interacts with our emotions, which are our feelings, our moods, and then that also, like, our emotions interact with our behavior, like we were talking about. How do we respond to the things that we feel? And our physiology interacts with our cognition, which is our thoughts and our beliefs. Our brain plays a big role in how we think. Well, it is how we think, and our beliefs, but our genetics also play a role in that. And us being a man or a woman also interacts with our cognition. And like everything you see on the board essentially interacts with each other, with one thing or another in some shape or form. Like exist in a bubble by themselves. They're, like we were looking here, that they're really affected by multiple things, and they interact also with multiple things. So I think it's a really good thing to keep in mind. This picture just shows how emotional intelligence is broken up into 4 categories, and it includes perceiving emotions, which means being aware of our emotions, also the emotions of other people, facilitating thoughts using emotions, meaning can you have thoughts that are guided by emotions, or vice versa? Can your emotions be guided by your thoughts? And then understanding of emotions, meaning do you understand what you're feeling, and do you understand what other people around you are feeling? And managing emotions, meaning are you driven by your feelings, or can you control your emotions to achieve whatever you need to achieve? And with people around you too, are you able to motivate people to do something around you, or not motivate them to do something around you? So those are 4 aspects of emotional intelligence to keep in mind. And we will dive deeper into these topics as we move on next week. But yeah, keep them in mind. And emotions and the brain, a little bit about that. Like I was saying earlier, our emotions don't just exist in a bubble. Our brain plays a big part in how our emotions work, how we perceive them, and how we have emotions, actually. And if you look at the picture on up top, it's a picture of a brain, and this is actually showing a response to like a stimulus, and it's triggering the brain's flight or flight response, which is there to protect us from danger, essentially. And what happens is the eyes see a potential threat right here, like a snake, which goes to the thalamus to be processed, and the thalamus goes and shoots information to the bypass cortex or the amygdala, which releases hormones that will help us either in the flight or flight response. And in situations like this, it might not be a dire situation, but in situations, it's essentially the same kind of process. We see something, it's processed in the brain, and then there's a response that happens. And you can see that here at the bottom picture, where there's an action and a reaction and a space in between of about 6 seconds before we actually do something. And as we train in our emotional intelligence, we can take that space. It's called emotional hijacking, and it's taking that space before a reaction is there to think about and to process before responding. So instead of, when there is something, a stimulus, and we respond in a very rash and immediate way, we can also process those emotions and then do something. Yeah, I don't think I want to add anything else to that. There is a YouTube video we're supposed to watch, but I'm going to go here and then we can watch the video afterwards. So we're pretty much done with the content for this week. And I don't know if you remember the 4 branches of emotional intelligence right here. But I want you to think about for yourself, which ones are you good at and which ones are you not so good at? Perceiving emotions, facilitating thought, understanding or managing emotions. And this self-awareness as we move into next week, and how can we manage our emotions and how can we have self-control, I think understanding ourselves is a very good place to start. I'm going to go ahead and play this video.
Personally, what it means by managing, and basically means.
When we hear the word emotion, most of us think of love, hate, happiness, or fear. Those strong feelings we experience throughout life. Our emotions are the driving force behind many of our behaviors, helpful and unhelpful. Just where do our emotions come from? Our brain is wired to look for threats or rewards. If one is detected, the feeling region of the brain alerts us through the release of chemical messages. Emotions are the effect of these chemical messages traveling from our brain through the body. When our brain detects a potential threat, our brain releases the stress hormones adrenaline and cortisol, which prepare us for a fight or flight response. When we detect or experience something rewarding, such as someone doing something nice for you, our brain releases dopamine, oxytocin, or serotonin. These are the chemicals that make us feel good and motivate us to continue on the task or behavior. In these instances, the feeling region of the brain kicks in before the thinking part. Sometimes the reactions of the feeling brain are so strong that it dominates our behaviors, and we're unable to think rationally in the moment. Our emotions hijack our brain. While many of our emotional responses happen subconsciously, our thinking can influence our emotions, and sometimes this can be unhelpful. Just thinking about something threatening can trigger an emotional response. This is where we can manage our emotions with conscious thinking. Our emotions play a powerful role in the way we experience the world. Understanding and regulating our emotions through our thoughts and behaviors can help us take greater control of our brain and achieve our goals.